Across the vast steppe of history, few names strike as much awe and fear as Genghis Khan. He is known as the fierce Mongolian leader who conquered and built one of the largest empires in human history, and his exploits have filled countless of pages in history books. But there's a less talked about, more personal side of Genghis Khan that often remains untalked about and stands in the shadows of his military achievements. Today we take a look on a rarely discussed topic: the horrifying realities his own daughters had to face. Yes, you heard that right. Behind the monumental figure of the great Khan stand his daughters, women who experienced a life that was anything but ordinary. These women's lives were marked by their father's relentless thirst for power, his strategic mind, and his complete control over their destinies. In this video, we are not going to focus on the battles he has won or the empires he has built, but we are going to dive into the untold and sometimes tragic stories of his daughters who were trapped inside their father's ambition. Therefore, they played roles they never asked for Genghis' grand game of power. But before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to Past Perspectives to learn more than just the dates and facts you learned in history class at school. We want to take a look at what the lives of the people really looked like. Now, before we can fully understand the lives of Genghis Khan's daughter, we first need to take a closer look at his personal life. While there is a lot known about the battles he fought and the lands he conquered, there is not as much known about his personal life, but we know that Genghis Khan's family life was as large and complex as the empire he ruled. He had many wives and children, so many that researchers even found out that 1 in 200 men today are direct descendants of Genghis Khan and carry his genetic legacy. But among all of his wives, one of them held a significant status, which was his first wife, Borte. With her, Genghis Khan had 4 sons that are wildly known in history: Jochi, Chagatai, Ogedei, and Talui. But lesser known are Genghis Khan's daughters, who had an equally important role in his grand plan. The names of his daughters, Alakai Beki, Chhaiken, Tumelun, Alaltun, and Tolagen, might not ring as many bells as their brothers, but their lives, controlled and manipulated by their father, oftentimes used as a strategic way to ensure power, influence, and survival. Something that is special is the role of women in Mongol society in the 13th century, as it was completely different from what we are used to today. Women during that time held a relatively higher status compared to their counterparts in other societies at that time. In a lot of clans, they were often involved in the decision-making processes and were respected for their wisdom and abilities. However, because they have been the daughters of Genghis Khan, who is known for his thirst for power, this was a totally different game altogether. Instead of being involved in decision-making processes, they were more like chess pieces on a board of power and alliances, with their lives being completely controlled by the strategic decisions of their father. Therefore, they were not allowed the privilege to make their own decisions and to choose their own paths in life. For Genghis, they became a tool for establishing and strengthening their father's rule. See, Genghis Khan was a mastermind, not just in battle, but also in statecraft, and he understood the importance of marriage and forging alliances to maintain and even expand his political power. In general, marriages in the medieval era, especially in the higher roles of nobility, were rarely about love or a personal connection. They were first and foremost a strategic decision, and Genghis Khan, with his great ambitions, just knew this too well. Using his daughters as bridges, he built a network of alliances that spanned across the vast landscape of Eurasia. They were married off to the chiefs of powerful tribes, to men who held significant positions in different parts of his empire. In the process, they became the unseen threads that held together the massive tapestry of Genghis Khan's dominion. And in the grand scheme, this looks great, but let's not forget the cost these alliances came with. Genghis' daughters were used as a pawn in his game, and they had to leave behind their home, their families, and their familiar surroundings. They were sent to live with men they barely knew, in tribes and cultures that are completely alien to them, and nobody had control of what really happens to them. These marriages weren't just like moving from one house to another. It was a complete uprooting of their lives. But beyond the physical displacement, these martial alliances also meant a life of political maneuvering and constant vigilance. Also, as the wives of powerful tribe leaders, and more so as the daughters of Genghis Khan, they were also always in the spotlight, with all of their actions being constantly watched. And while this sounds heartbreaking already, just wait until we talk about every single daughter in detail and the horrifying fate they have met. Just one thing I want to mention before we look at their life is how important it is to speak about their stories. A lot of these stories are buried in history, behind all the great battles and the heroes of that time. But here at Past Perspectives, we want to take a look at those unsung heroes. So, if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel. With that being said, let's take a look at the 4 daughters he had with Borta in detail. Our journey into the lives of Genghis Khan's daughters brings us first to Alakai Beki. As the eldest daughter of Genghis Khan, she was often thrown into the forefront of her father's political machinations. During her father's conquest, she involuntarily became a leading figure in the empire, and despite being in that position involuntarily, she later became known for her keen intellect and strategic intelligence, just like her father. However, she got wedded to a Mongolian general at a young age, and her life was far from easy. Behind the scenes, she bore the weight of political alliances, negotiated delicate situations, and crafted unity among tribes. And even though she was keeping the part of the empire she lived in stable, she never got the credit she deserved, and her talents and skills have always been overshadowed by her father's reputation. The next daughter is Chhaiken. She got married off to the Uyghur chieftain to secure a crucial alliance. With this alliance, Genghis got the Uyghur troops to serve in the Mongol war machine, and it was a 100% strategic decision by Genghis Khan. This way, he not only got the Uyghur troops to fight in war with him, but he also again stabilized his control over his empire. And while all of this sounds glorious, for his daughter Chhaiken, this meant leaving their familiar surroundings to live in a foreign land among people with different customs and traditions. During her life, she had lots of trouble fitting in and adapting these new traditions. In later documents, it's said that she apparently overcame this, and she was able to navigate her role as the chieftain's wife with grace. While she didn't have as much influence as her sister Alakai, she still played the role her father has picked out for her. If she was happy about that or not is unfortunately not handed down to us. Third, we find Talui Beki, who lived under similar circumstances. Like her sisters, Talui was married off to establish a diplomatic alliance, and in her case, it was with the powerful Kherate tribe. This marriage again was a significant political achievement for Genghis Khan. However, for his daughter Talui, it was a huge challenge. It's said that she didn't want this, and what makes this even more heartbreaking is that a lot of marriages in the Mongol society happened in the early teens. So again, she got put in an unfamiliar world, facing countless challenges and a life far removed from the freedoms and family she had in her early childhood. Lastly, we have Chhaiken Beki, who was the youngest of Genghis Khan's daughters. Unlike the other daughters, she got not married off to a foreign leader, but to one of her father's trusted generals. This decision allowed her to stay closer to her family, but this didn't make her life any less challenging. She still had the struggles of not being the master of her own life, and being forced into a role she didn't choose for herself, and only lived to serve her father. The horrifying realities that Genghis Khan's daughters experienced under his rule didn't just end in their personal suffering. Their personalities significantly contributed to shaping the future of the Mongol Empire. Their arranged marriages helped solidify political alliances, spread Mongol influence, and ensured the continuation of Genghis Khan's bloodline in many ruling dynasties across Asia. One thing that still remains remarkable, though, is the fact that some of his daughters took the terrible fate they have met as a chance, and some of them grew to be influential figures in their own realm. For example, Alakai Beki, a daughter married off to cement an alliance, is known to have effectively ruled the empire during the interregnum periods. Despite being pawns in the grand scheme of power, these women demonstrated resilience and found ways to make their mark. In total, the relationship between Genghis Khan and his daughters had little to do with a classic father-daughter relationship, and he did not have their best interest in mind. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to Past Perspectives. And if you want to hear more about the horrifying things Genghis Khan did to his enemies, make sure to check the video I have linked for you. With that being said, thanks for watching, and until next time.